You know how your smartphone screen lights up the exact second you pick it up from a table?
Oh, yeah, like instantly.
Right. It has these tiny internal sensors, accelerometers, basically, that detect the absolute slightest shift in movement.
Yeah, they are incredibly precise. I mean, if the phone is just sitting flat, it's dormant.
Exactly. But the second its position changes in space, the hardware registers that shift, and, well, it wakes the whole system up.
And there is no in between for that hardware. It is a completely binary state driven purely by physical movement, totally independent of whatever software might be running in the background.
Right. Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host. And what if I told you that you have the exact same kind of biological machinery built right into your own body?
And I'm your expert guide today. It's great to be here. We are diving into an excerpt from a book called The Science of Meditation, specifically a chapter titled Stillness and Motion.
Yeah, we are basically going to learn how ancient practitioners figured out how to literally hack those built-in physics sensors, like to trick the human brain into a state of deep restorative sleep, all while your mind stays entirely awake.
It is a wild concept, and the
Yeah.
blueprint for how the source material breaks this down is just fascinating. We'll start with the surprising biology of physical stillness.
Right, and then look at the physics of how certain movements can actually register as stillness.
Exactly. From there, we'll explore a physical loophole used in Tai Chi and end with a practical trick that lets you experience deep sleep relaxation in, like, under a minute.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text starts with the definition of meditation that completely flips the script.
It really does.
Instead of framing meditation as a purely mental exercise, like repeating a mantra or visualizing a peaceful forest, it defines the biological nature of meditation strictly as keeping the mind awake while allowing the physical body to enter a state of sleep.
Right, it centers the entire process on the physiological hardware. The mechanism relies entirely on those internal sensors we just talked about.
The bodily accelerometers.
Yeah, human bodies have this intricate network of proprioceptors and vestibular sensors, and they constantly feed spatial data to the brain.
Like a live telemetry feed.
Exactly. So, by maintaining absolute physical stillness, you are depriving those sensors of new data. They fail to detect any macroscopic muscle movement or spatial translation.
So by flatlining the data feed, the brain just gets confused.
Well, it's more of a built-in biological assumption. With enough time and unbroken stillness, your unconscious brain observes the lack of incoming data and concludes that you must have fallen asleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and once it makes that assumption, it initiates this massive cascading physiological response. It systematically starts shutting down both your motor and sensory nerves.
So essentially, if we don't trigger the body's internal smartwatch, the brain just pulls the plug on the physical body.
Yes. It inhibits the sympathetic nervous system, which is the network responsible for your fight or flight stress responses, the cortisol dumps, the elevated heart rate.
Right, the stress mode.
Exactly. And simultaneously, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the rest and digest functions.
Okay, so your blood vessels dilate, your breathing shallows.
You've got it. You are effectively tricking your nervous system into powering down by starving it of movement data. That is the core biological hack.
That is wild.
If the accelerometers read 0 for a sustained period, the brain hits the sleep switch. And the text makes a rather bold assertion here. Maintaining this sheer stillness is not just one of many ways to meditate.
Right, it says it's the primary key element of meditation.
Potentially the only one that truly matters biologically.
Which means this mechanism is entirely universal, because the text mentions a highly diverse range of static exercises across different cultures. Things like Zhuang, Naiden, and various Qigong practices.
Yeah, like the breath-adjusting tuna and Jinghe.
Exactly. If you look at these from the outside, they seem like completely different disciplines. But let's look at Zhuang, for example.
The standing meditation.
Right. Practitioners hold postures that look like they're hugging a tree. Their knees are bent, their arms are raised. It is physically grueling.
Oh, absolutely.
Their muscles are firing constantly just to maintain the posture. But biologically, they are achieving the exact same hack as someone lying flat on their back.
Because the body's accelerometers measure changes in spatial positioning and joint angles.
Okay.
Right? Not necessarily the isometric tension of a muscle fiber.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So in Zhuang, your quadriceps might be burning, but if your skeleton is locked in space, the macroscopic movement is 0. The sensory data flatlines.
It strips away all the cultural and stylistic differences.
Exactly. Whether you are standing, sitting in a full lotus, or lying dead flat on a mat, If you hold the frame of the body still enough for long enough, the unconscious brain will eventually flip that parasympathetic switch.
Okay, wait. I have a question here. If complete stillness is the only key to tricking the brain, how do we explain moving practices?
Like what?
Well, the text explicitly brings up Buddhist walking meditation, right? Where practitioners pace back and forth outdoors.
Ah, yes.
By definition, walking involves lifting your legs, shifting your center of gravity, moving through space. How can movement trigger a biological system that demands zero movement?
What's fascinating here is that the answer lies in Newton's first law of motion.
Wait, physics?
Yes, the text uses physics to explain the biology. The first half of Newton's law states that an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an external force.
Right, so that perfectly covers the sitting and standing meditations we just talked about.
Exactly. But the second half of the law states that an object not subjected to external forces will also remain moving at a constant speed in a straight line.
Ah, uniform linear motion.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this translates directly to human biology because our internal sensors are not designed to feel velocity. They do not feel speed itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they only feel acceleration, which is literally defined as a change in speed or direction.
Oh, I get it now. The text uses an analogy of a giant cruise ship for this, which is so helpful.
That's a great analogy.
Imagine you're placed inside a windowless cabin in the middle of a massive ocean liner. There is no engine vibration, no waves crashing.
It's just totally smooth.
Right. If that ship is out on the open ocean, moving at a perfectly steady 20 knots, you, sitting in that cabin, cannot tell if the ship is completely still at the dock or moving steadily across the water.
You literally have no biological way of sensing the 20 knots.
Because your body's vestibular system,
The fluid in your inner ear.
right, the fluid that detects balance and motion, it only registers changes in momentum.
Like, if you are in a car on a perfectly smooth highway going 70 miles per hour, your body feels like it's sitting in a living room chair.
Yeah, you only feel the motion when the driver taps the brakes or hits the gas pedal.
That sudden jolt is acceleration. That is what your body detects. So when you remove the visual cues of the scenery flying by, the physical sensation of a perfectly steady 70 miles per hour is biologically identical to 0 miles per hour.
Wow. So applying this to walking meditation, when a Buddhist practitioner is performing walking meditation, they are walking in a straight line
Yeah.
at a highly controlled, constant speed.
They are essentially embodying the cruise ship.
Yes. Because there is zero change in their speed, the body's internal smartwatch registers zero acceleration.
Even though the actual velocity might be 2 miles an hour.
Exactly. But because the acceleration is zero, the brain is tricked into thinking the body is asleep, even while the person's actively walking across a courtyard.
The neurological requirement for the parasympathetic shift isn't actually 0 speed, it's 0 acceleration. Walking at a uniform speed in a straight line satisfies that. Your unconscious mind simply cannot tell the difference between sitting perfectly still on a cushion and walking with perfectly steady momentum.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back a bit on the physics logic.
Okay, let's hear it.
Uniform straight lines make sense. I completely buy the walking meditation concept. But the text next claims that Tai Chi and moving Qigong are also forms of meditation.
Right.
But Tai Chi is entirely made up of winding, curved, sweeping movements. Physics dictates that any change in direction, even if the speed is exactly the same, is technically an acceleration.
Yes, a curve is continuous acceleration.
Right. So shouldn't those twisting, non-linear motions immediately trigger the inner ear and the proprioceptors to wake the brain up?
That is an excellent catch, and it's a logical trap that the text addresses by looking at the limitations of human biology.
What do you mean?
Well, you are absolutely right about the physics. Changing direction is an acceleration. But the biological loophole is that our body sensors are not perfectly calibrated scientific instruments. They have a sensory threshold.
Oh, so they can only detect a stimulus if it's loud enough, basically.
Precisely. Think about the cruise ship again. Even if that massive ship slowly unties from the dock and begins to accelerate out into the harbor.
It is incredibly hard to feel that acceleration if the captain applies the power gradually enough.
Right. The change in speed is so slight and spread out over so much time that it stays below the threshold of human perception.
The fluid doesn't shift enough to trigger the nerve endings.
Exactly. The acceleration exists in reality, but biologically it goes undetected.
So it's about staying underneath the radar of your own nervous system.
That is the entire secret behind the slowness of these moving practices. I mean, Tai Chi is derived directly from Chinese martial arts.
which normally involve explosive power.
Rapid acceleration, sudden, jerky changes in direction, all of those things generate massive spikes in acceleration that scream, I am awake, to
Yeah.
your nervous system.
Right.
But Tai Chi takes those exact same martial applications, punches, blocks, parries, and performs them with agonizingly slow, uniform speed and seamless transitions.
So by stretching a 1-second punch into a 10-second movement, they dilute the acceleration.
They dilute it so heavily that the acceleration approaches zero. The change in velocity is kept so consistently below the threshold of the body's sensors that the unconscious brain simply ignores the movement.
It just still assumes you're asleep.
Exactly. Therefore, according to the physical and biological mechanisms in the text, Tai Chi and moving Qigong aren't just mild stretches. By hijacking the sensory threshold, they are fundamentally forms of deep meditation.
That is a brilliant mechanical explanation. People practicing Tai Chi in a park are effectively sleepwalking on purpose.
Basically, yeah.
They are purposefully keeping their body's accelerometers quiet while executing complex martial arts forms.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have explored the first half of Newton's first law, uniform motion. But the text also dives into the second part of that law.
The law of inertia.
Yes. Inertia is defined as an object's resistance to changing its current state of motion. And understanding inertia is what unlocks a physical technique called progressive muscle relaxation.
This part of the text gives you a highly tangible tool to use right now. It breaks down ambient muscle tension on a scale from 0 to 10.
Right, where 10 is intense physical activity.
Yeah, you are sprinting or maxing out a heavy deadlift. And 0 is deep restorative sleep, where the voluntary muscles are completely flaccid and paralyzed.
But the text notes a crucial problem here. Our normal waking state is never a 0.
Right, even when we are just sitting on a couch or working at a desk casually, our ambient muscle tension hovers around a 3.
That 3 is a required baseline. Your postural muscles are constantly firing micro-adjustments just to keep you upright against gravity.
And I imagine psychological stress keeps that baseline tension elevated too.
Oh, totally. The issue is that this baseline is very hard to manually override. You cannot just consciously command your muscles to drop from a 3 to a 0 while you are awake.
Because your conscious mind just doesn't have the administrative privileges to turn off that baseline tension.
Exactly. Normally, it is physically impossible to feel what a 0 feels like while you are conscious.
But the text outlines a technique by Dr. Jacobson, which uses the physics of inertia to bypass this restriction entirely.
The progressive muscle relaxation hack.
Right. And here is how the mechanics work. Instead of trying to force your tension down from a 3 to a 0, which we just established is impossible, you go in the exact opposite direction.
You deliberately tense your muscles all the way up to a 10.
Yeah. You clench your fists, you tighten your arms, you flex your shoulders, and you hold it. You hold it until it almost shakes. And then suddenly you let completely go.
You instantaneously remove the voluntary contraction.
And because of the physics of inertia, the biological resistance to sudden change, the tension in the muscle tissue doesn't just neatly drop back down and stop at your baseline of 3.
It's like a stretched bungee cord snapping back.
Exactly. It swings aggressively past the baseline. It plummets down from 10, blasts right through 3, hits 2, hits 1, and drops all the way down to a true 0 for a brief moment, before eventually bouncing back up and settling at a 3 again.
And the reason this is so profoundly valuable for you as someone trying to understand or practice meditation is that this brief plunge past the baseline gives you a unique window.
It usually lasts about half a minute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, about 30 seconds. During that time, you get to consciously experience the exact physical sensation of sleep paralysis while your mind is totally awake.
You feel the heavy, warm, sinking sensation of motor neurons temporarily going offline.
You actually get to taste the end goal of the entire practice.
That is so cool.
It acts as an incredible warm-up exercise. I mean, if you don't know what a biological 0 physically feels like, how can you possibly aim for it during a seated meditation?
Right. Progressive muscle relaxation gives you a clear, explicit physical target.
It proves to your conscious mind that this profound level of neurological relaxation is actually possible to achieve inside your own body.
So what does this all mean? We're talking about hacking accelerometers, diluting acceleration, using the law of inertia. It sounds entirely like a biophysics seminar.
Right, it does.
But the text doesn't stop there. It beautifully connects these mechanical physical hacks back to the profound ancient wisdom traditions, specifically Patanjali's 8 Limbs of Yoga.
Which is such an important connection.
I think it's vital because it explains how to scale that 30-second window of zero tension into a permanent state of mind.
Yeah, it is so easy to view these biological tricks in a modern vacuum, as just productivity hacks for better sleep.
Right.
But the text reminds us that these physical hacks are merely the entry point to a much deeper historical journey. When we look at modern yoga today.
The posture-based classes in modern gyms, the sweating, the intense stretching.
Exactly. The text points out a surprisingly overlooked fact. That entire physical practice, known as the asana, is only the third limb of Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga.
Wait, really? The physical stretching is just the third limb?
Just the warm-up. It is merely the preparation to burn off physical jitteriness and prepare the nervous system. The later limbs move progressively inward.
So what comes after the postures?
After you master the physical postures, you move to the fourth limb, pranayama, which is breathing yoga.
Oh, this is very much akin to the Qigong breathwork we discussed earlier.
Exactly. It is about smoothing out the internal motion of the respiratory system to further quiet the body's internal sensors. Then, much later at limb 7, you reach dhyana.
Which is deep meditation.
Right, an extended, incredibly deep state of meditation where the mind holds unbroken focus because the physical body has entirely powered down. And finally, the pinnacle, the 8th limb, is samadhi.
Samadhi. The unity of heaven and humanity. The absolute highest state that meditation can theoretically bring a human being to.
And what is so striking about the source text is how it demystifies this ultimate goal.
How so?
Well, it describes how many Eastern temples feature these grand stone tablets or plaques at their entrances bearing the words, entering samadhi.
Right, which historically creates this aura that true enlightenment or true deep neurological connection is something mystical.
Something locked away behind heavy temple walls reserved exclusively for monks or ascetics hiding away in wild forests.
But the author completely rejects that exclusivity.
Completely. The text argues that samadhi isn't a geographical location or a mystical temple rite. It exists inside everyone's own heart.
Oh, I love that.
It is a biological and spiritual potential built into the very frame of the human nervous system.
It is the ultimate state of sensory integration where the boundary between self and environment dissolves purely because your internal accelerometers are completely offline.
You don't need to travel across the globe to seek out masters to find it. You can access it sitting quietly in your own living room or walking slowly in your own backyard.
Because the mechanism to get there, the hacking of your internal sensors, the deliberate quieting of the physical body to awaken the mind, is universal.
You already own the hardware. You just need to apply the precise physics of stillness or uniform motion to turn the key.
It really is an incredible journey when you step back and look at the whole picture we painted today for you.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We started by understanding how sheer, unbroken stillness deprives our biological accelerometers of data, tricking the brain into shutting down our fight-or-flight stress responses.
And then we realized that because our bodies only feel acceleration, not speed, maintaining a perfectly constant speed in walking meditation achieves the exact same neurological trick.
Right. Then we explored how the agonizingly slow, diluted movements of Tai Chi slip right under the threshold of our vestibular system.
And finally, we learned how to use the physics of inertia, snapping the tension from a 10 down to a 0 to force our muscles past their waking baseline into a 30-second window of awake sleep. This raises an important question, though.
Okay.
A question that builds heavily on everything the source text reveals about how our biology interprets motion. If keeping our bodily acceleration near 0 is the biological key that allows our nervous system to slip into a deeply restorative parasympathetic state,
Yeah.
what does that say about our modern lifestyles?
Oh, wow.
Think about the constant, jerky, non-uniform micro-movements we make all day long.
Rapidly flicking a mouse, jolting around on a subway commute.
Or erratically scrolling, swiping, and tapping on a smartphone screen.
Right.
If sheer stillness and smooth, uniform motion equal rest and restoration, could our modern, erratic physical habits be constantly pinging our internal accelerometers?
Are we secretly denying our nervous systems the chance to ever truly find peace? Are we constantly feeding our brain a data stream of microaccelerations that essentially tells it to stay in a low-grade state of panic?
It's definitely something to think about.
I want you to ponder that question the next time you notice yourself fidgeting at your desk or frantically scrolling through a feed. Remember the biology we unpacked today. Remember the highly sensitive smartwatch buried inside your nervous system.
It might be time to stop moving so erratically, sit completely still, and let the screen go dark for a while.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden physics of your own body. We'll catch you next time.